What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mississippi Real Estate Podcast, hosted by Ryan Watson.
And I'm Tripp Spruill, where it's all about real life, real talk, and real estate.
Join us as we dive into the stories, trends, and insider tips shaping the world of Mississippi real estate.
Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or you're just curious about the market, we've got all the insights you need to navigate with confidence. So if y'all are ready, let's get real.
Well, so welcome back to our podcast here. We've got a very special guest with us today. I think of him as a good friend, and we go to church together too. He was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, went to college at Mississippi College, lots of different things here, 8.5 years as a realtor. He was in the top 20%, am I saying that right?
Yep.
In his brokerage and the MLS. He was a MAR treasurer, central VP, elected as treasurer again before he became the CEO of CMR. He's the current CEO of CMR. Mixed my words up, but anyways, yeah. I'll let him do the rest and let him tell about who he is. And
yeah, we're super excited to have you on today, David. Thank you for taking the time and spending some of your morning with us, and getting to know you better and see what CMR has in store for us realtors, and maybe some new realtors that are going to be hitting in the industry or whatnot. So
my pleasure. Thank y'all for having me and asking me to be here.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
So get into it, man. Tell us who David Ostrander is and your story, how you landed.
Some highlights here.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, is it from Louisiana? I always ask this.
Yeah.
Because I always get into it. Is it Lafayette or Lafayette?
So neither. So growing up there, being from there, we pronounce it Lafayette.
Okay.
And so Lafayette. And so a lot of people from here say Lafayette. And then we of course have Lafayette County. And so there's a number of different ways. I've always said Lafayette. That's where I grew up there, and we call it Lafayette.
I'm going to go with that one. From the guy that was born and raised.
Lafayette.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's kind of a long story, but basically my parents divorced when I was young. And so my family was living in Clinton, but I was born in Lafayette. So my grandfather was a pastor there. And so my mom took us to Lafayette at a young age. And that's where I spent my childhood. So I call Lafayette home. Now this is home because I've been here for, since 2010, 2011, something like that. Or no, excuse me, before that, 2006, I moved to the central Mississippi area. The long way around is I was in Lafayette, then Knoxville, Tennessee for a year, and then landed in Indianola in the Delta. And so the metropolis of Indianola. And so great experience there and loved my time there. But graduated high school at Indianola Academy, went to Mississippi College, got a degree in interpersonal and public communication. And was working during, I spent most of my college time working. And so I didn't get a ton of involvement through the school. I did a little bit, but spent most of my time working through college. And so got into the wellness world a little bit, graduated college, started working at a little law firm. It's a large law firm called Butler Snow.
Oh, yeah, a little law firm, only got a big building over there.
So, just right down the road. And so I was working there kind of as an entry-level HR role. What they wanted was somebody to run their wellness program. And I had been working in gyms and things through college. And so I got my foot in the door there. Did that for a little bit. Then I left there to go work for another company called Ergon.
Yeah,
and
another
I worked,
small one.
Another small company. Did some HR work.
Growing a little bit.
So I worked in HR in both of those.
Okay.
And then kind of had an itch to work for myself.
Yeah.
And ended up stepping away from Ergon and worked for a buddy of mine who's another realtor, actually, at the time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to work for myself. Right. And there's a lot of story there.
So there was no real estate light bulbs going off yet?
Actually, he was the one that introduced me to it. He's another local realtor here, and he's still selling real estate. He's one of these guys. He's like you, Tripp. He kind of has his hands in a few different things, and so he got me in.
What's his name?
Nathan Holditch.
Oh, okay,
yeah. I go to church with him too. So and he's a good friend of mine, and his family, great people, and so but Nathan allowed me to help him with his landscape company while I figured out what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I just kind of helped him for about a year. Yeah. And he said, David, why don't you get your real estate license? And I said, this was in, was it 2016 or so, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And I said, because I don't want to be the same. I don't want to be like everybody else. Everybody's becoming a realtor. I don't want to do what everybody else is. Whatever I decide to do, I want to be in it for the long term. Yeah. And I don't want to hit it while the moment's hot. And one day he just looked at me and he said, David, are you worried about job security, pay security? And I said, I guess so. Now, bear in mind, at that time, my first child was on the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
that could be scary.
So I was figuring out where, what am I going to do?
I got to feed this thing.
Yeah. I know.
I got to raise this thing.
Yeah, and having to work with Nathan was great because it provided me, but I also had just left corporate world, where there was that, what I viewed as job security.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. I mean, I've got,
Sorry to interrupt.
Can relate to that.
And so I just stepped away. Nathan was helping me there. And I said, I guess job security. And he said, which is more secure? Somebody being able to walk in and tell you, hey, you're done here and your paycheck's gone? Or are you going out and providing it and producing it on your own? And I said, I guess the latter. And that was the light switch that flipped on for me to go do something on my own for sure. And he said, you need to look into real estate. And I ended up doing it. Worked with his brokerage, which was Frontgate Realty, for a little while. Okay. Their brokers, Shelley Barnes and Stephanie Cummins.
Are they still partner? Is he still part of that?
He's still there. Okay. And they're some of my best friends today, Stephanie Cummins. And Stephanie's actually going to be the president of MAR in a couple of years. Oh, wow. And we've kind of had we've kind of walked the path of leadership together. And so they're some of my best friends today. And some of the early lessons of how important realtor-to-realtor relationships are. They taught me a lot of that. And so from there, I was struggling in my business. Mm-hmm. And
like most newbies probably
like most newbies do, and so I had a buddy who was at another brokerage who sat down to lunch with me and just said, hey, try these things, and those things worked. Yeah. And I began to get business. And my thought process...
I need to know what those things are.
Look, I teach them all the time. That's part of what we do, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that was my whole thing was I left that meeting going, if he taught me this in a lunch, how much more could I learn if I were at the same brokerage? Yeah. And so I left Frontgate, went to Keller Williams, and spent 8 years at Keller Williams.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say, though, to be fair, to, I guess, Frontgate too, they're more of a boutique type, right?
Well, they're local,
They're local, so the training opportunities were just probably greater at Keller Williams, being a franchise type brokerage. Wouldn't you think, kind of like a Weichert,
one of the biggest as far as teaching or.
Yeah, Keller Williams is known for its training.
That's right.
And there's some good and bad to that, right? Because they're very well known for training new agents, but not training as well for the experienced agent or the higher producing agents. Gotcha. They have it. It just seems like the strength is in training new agents. Part of that is, at smaller brokerages, you oftentimes have brokers who are also producing.
That's right.
Yeah. They have their own businesses, and they just. It's not whether they want to or don't. It's a lot of times they don't have time, and I won't say that was their case at Frontgate. I don't know. I don't know their time or whatever those things were, but they helped me a little bit, and it was a great experience. And when I moved to Keller Williams, they had systems and programs set up specifically for training.
That's right.
And so it helped me. And to be honest with you, though. It wasn't the training systems were very good, and I believe they still do. I think there's a lot of brokerages that have great training systems.
For sure.
The thing that helped me the most was having a high-producing agent say, hey, why don't you just come with me for a week and just come to my appointments, listen to how I talk to clients, and
it's almost like
just shadow me.
Mentor, mentor type.
That's what it was.
I got to give it up for this guy right here. He's been
well,
a freaking trooper.
There you go.
I mean, I think that's what you need, though.
Yeah.
You know, I had it too. So, I mean, kind of to relate to your story, I was talking to a guy that was running his own, Stephen Milner, with Backwoods and all that, and this is before they blew up to what they are now, and he told me straight up at a lunch when I was leaving corporate, and he's like, man, I want to take you on. Yeah. But he's like, I think it'd be beneficial for you to go to one of these other bigger brokerages that can provide the training. He's like, I can't provide it, and I'm busy. Yeah. So he was opening up front, which I 100% appreciated, and I did. Absolutely. I ended up landing at Citrus 21, and they had, back in office training stuff, and that was great. And then I kind of went from there. But so that's how you landed at Keller Williams, right? And that's where you spent the rest of the 8 years.
Yeah. So I was with Frontgate for a few months, 5 or 6 months. Yeah. And not producing, and moved to Keller Williams and ended up kind of finding a groove there. And there's a lot more, there's a lot more to why I stayed at Keller Williams than just that I was producing there and they had good training. But on the front end, it was just that, I began to actually produce and had some mentors who could help me there. And by the way, Frontgate was totally supportive of it. Sure. When I sat down and talked with my brokers, they said, hey, we think that would be good for you too, to be able to spend some time learning and training. And so they were nothing but kind and generous and helpful while I was there. It wasn't quite what I needed. Yeah. And that's an important thing, I think, for other agents to recognize. Yeah. Is that they're and then making absolutely. Well, and there's no one brokerage that is a fit for every person. Right. And so you kind of find your groove, and you find the broker that's going to support you, and the training systems that support you, and wherever you find that is where you should really plant your feet. Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think you hit on something too earlier. You were talking about how Frontgate pushed the relationships with other realtors. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that I think for me when I first came on, I found that it was kind of a 60-40 thing, and I don't know. I felt like it depended on. Some days I felt like there was realtors that were like for you and with you and wanted to work with you, and then there's some weeks I was like, man, everybody just kind of. Your competition. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's just filling out the waters or this, that, and other, but I will say this. I've learned here along the way, going to some more networking things and this, that, and other, like when you learn you have to work with everybody, then you find people you tend to gravitate to, and you do. You'll even say if you got a listing, hey, you got a buyer. Like you start finding the people you work well with, and then there's some that it is what it is in every business. Did you come across anything like that? Like, did you feel like that it took a while to establish as a new agent relationships with some of these seasoned folks?
Yes and no. I think that there's an assertiveness that some people lack and others have. With Frontgate in particular, while I spent my time there, which was a short period, what I learned was, even to this day, their broker is one of the best relationship managers I've ever seen. She just is. She knows how to use her time, and she does it in building relationships with people. Yeah. And what I learned was, fast forward a few years, after I left Frontgate to go to Keller Williams, I didn't know what those relationships were going to play out to be. Right. I didn't know, because you hear coming into this business that, it's a cutthroat industry, and I hope you got thick skin, and you hear all these things. Yeah. And while sometimes that's true, with some people, what I learned is, number one, there's enough business out there for everybody. I don't have to be that way with people, and nor does anybody else. The people who act that way are operating in what I call a scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. They don't know what's out there. Mm-hmm. All they hear is what you're doing, and so I'm just going to try to take it. Yeah. There's enough out there for everybody. Absolutely. Not to mention that down the road, we didn't know, Stephanie Cummins and I didn't know that 3-4 years down the road, we were going to be walking hand in hand in leadership together. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And so I had left their brokerage, and then fast forward a few years later, we get on the executive committee at the Mississippi Association of Realtors together, and then like that happened. So we kind of have a similar story. Yeah. you know,
great family.
we can
They're
get
a great family.
Yeah, they're awesome, and you know, they're all into real estate, and they, you know, but it's interesting how it played out. Stephanie and I, neither one of us had spent too much time on our local board in leadership. We get accepted into working on the executive committee for the state, which is a big deal. Both of us get the honor of being there together. Then the next year, neither one of us get asked back.
No.
And so, so we deal kind of with that heartache together.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, what in the world, you know? Yeah. But then the next year, we both get asked back again. And so we kind of walked through these, you know, ebbs and flows of leadership together. And so little did I know when I started my real estate career, left, and then, you know, left their brokerage and then went to a different brokerage, how our relationship would then meet up again. Yeah. And now, you know, again, now she's going to be the president of MAR in 2027. Yeah, 2027. And I'm the CEO of Central Mississippi Realtors, and it all came from our leadership journey together. So cool. It's just really cool.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily work with somebody in a brokerage to work with somebody. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And you can still have those great relationships.
Yeah.
So Rock and Roll and Keller Williams.
Yep.
You've made, you know, you're a high producer.
Yeah.
And you are, like, I mean, people know you around here. You are killing it in real estate. What did you you got some good advice, good mentor. Yeah. What was kind of like, how did you kind of carry your real estate day to day to where you know, everybody talks about pipeline, full. Mm-hmm. I know for me, sometimes I'll get a deal done and you get a few deals done and you're like, oh crap.
That's the roller coaster.
You know what I mean? That's the ride. So just kind of walk through some of your day to day, some tricks maybe that work for you, and then we can kind of pivot, I guess.
Yeah, it's a real estate roller coaster. Everybody experiences it. It is I begin to build clients, and then I stop lead generating, and then I sell off everything that I had, and now I have to lead generate again. Now I'm back to square one. And so, fortunately, you know, Keller Williams teaches around that. They teach what are the next steps. But I'll tell you, you know, once you get to the place of high production, they teach leverage and what are the next steps so you can continue to lead generate so you don't go back down on that roller coaster. You just continue to go up. And so that was a factor. That was a piece for me. At one point, I did hire somebody to help me, and that allowed me to spend my time lead generating. But I'll tell you the most practical for most agents. Because most agents are going to look at that and go, I can't afford to hire somebody.
Yeah,
that's a big step. That's a hard, and I get that. And so before you even get there, I'll never forget the moment when COVID hit, and everybody was figuring out what in the world do we do. It's like the world had frozen. And
it felt like that for sure.
It did. I mean, and in production, you're sitting there selling stuff, and you don't know whether deals are going to close. You don't know if attorneys' offices are even going to be open to close. Like we don't do the e-notary stuff, so you have to meet in person with somebody to get stuff done.
Meet in person.
And you couldn't meet in person. Offices were. We didn't know, and so even homeowners. Or potential homeowners, one or the other, buyers or sellers, they were pausing. They didn't know. They were all everything was just frozen. Right. And I remember sitting in my office. I went into my office, and I was the only one there. And I went into the office, and I sat there, and I was about to the point of tears. I was just like, what do I do? My business is stuck, and I have no idea what to do. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, I remember the thought just sitting there, do what you know is right. Do what you know works. Just do what you know works and keep doing it. And I've always had this saying when I talk with people who are in production is activity breeds activity. In other words, if you sit there and wait for it to come, it ain't coming.
It's not coming, no.
But if you just start to do something, if you just start to do something, something productive, it will lead to business. Now, my way of doing that always worked, if I ever got into a place where my business felt like it was slowing down or I was in that, I felt it going down, my main form of lead generating was social media.
Yeah.
I would get on and I would use
advertising.
That's right. Well, and it wasn't just advertising. So one of the things that I would teach about is there's a difference between prospecting and marketing. Yeah. Marketing is advertising. Prospecting is, hey, you know anybody that needs to buy and sell a house, and there's differences.
That's asking for the business versus.
That's right.
Like,
That's more. It's branding versus I'm coming and talking to you one on one. One costs money and time.
That's a great way to look at it, because a lot of times I get stuck in the mindset of, okay, this is just a great platform to advertise on, but it also can be a great place to find leads. And
so that's how mine would.
Asking, talking to people, engaging.
I would get onto Facebook, and I say this to people because I know I will teach this to 100 people, and 98 of them won't do it.
Oh man!
And so
here we go.
And so what I would do, and because I know how it feels, I know the feeling of it, and we get in our heads about stuff. But when it's talking about production, I'm gonna do whatever I got to do. Right. And so what I would do is I would get in to my Facebook, and you can actually create friends lists.
I'd learned this I should have learned this a long time ago.
Yeah, so you can create friends lists. And so I created what they call the Y2D2 system. And that's 2 letters of the alphabet, and I would plug for the whole, so this is the way it's set up. 2 letters of the alphabet. How many letters are there in the alphabet?
20-something.
Yeah, something like that. 26, I think. So if you do 2,
Can we get a fact checker over here?
If you do 2, I think it's 26.
Anyway,
it's 26. So you do 2. Each group has 2 letters. You spend a week on those 2 letters. Well, after that, after you've spent a week on every 2 letters, you've used up a quarter.
Look at that.
So 1 group per week. Over the course of, typically a quarter's 12 or 13 weeks, you've hit 1 group per quarter. So what I would do is I would create this Y2D2 system. 2 letters of the alphabet. I'd plug everybody with those letters in their names. You would be in the R's. So I would, on my R week, I would DM you. No, into the quarter.
So this wasn't out there on the feeds.
No,
this was
so
direct
message. This is DMs. I would get in, and here's what I would do, and this is the trick that I would do to people is
until you get hacked. Then we get hacked.
I did get hacked. We can talk about that at one point. In fact, we'll talk about that in a minute. But what it is, you spend 1 week with those 2 letters. You DM until Facebook stops you. Because at about 50 messages, they go, you're spamming people.
Oh, they figure you out.
Now, here's the thing is my messages were unique. I wouldn't just copy and paste. I kind of would copy and paste, but I would make it unique to that person every time I do it. And so I'm sending 50 messages a day or so until I finish that group of people. By the end of that quarter, I start back over. And so everybody's going to get a DM from me at least 4 times a year.
New letter in the alphabet.
2 letters. So A and W are the first week. The first week of every quarter is A and W. Wow. And so the first week, whoever, Anthony would get a message from me the first week of every quarter saying, hey, and it may be an update to the market. Are you interested? But it is a direct touch. And here's what I learned. When I started production and I started getting going, I would lean away from that, and I would get away. But every time I needed business, I would get in there and I'd start messaging people, and I'd follow that system. And every single time I'd find my business would start to pick up.
My hopes in us starting this podcast is we can bring value to folks and find one nugget. I think you just got your one nugget on this one from that. I mean, that's amazing. I knew about.
If you're a real estate agent, man,
why would you not?
Or not even just real estate. That pertains to anything. Yourself.
See, I thought he was going to go
off.
What I mean?
I
thought he was going to say 98% of people won't do video. I get that. I talked to people.
I thought he was going there.
That's what I thought. That's where I thought you were going, because people would say you got to do video, you got to do reels, and I was like, I don't know. And then you hear other realtors like, I just can't get on video. Yeah. He just took it a whole new spin. When he started talking about friend lists, I was like, I think I know how to create one, but the way you're talking about it, that's...
it's systematic.
Yeah. But people don't do it because...
He would probably agree that videos are important.
Yeah, so it's 2 different...
But that's the marketing
That's the marketing side. That's right. That's right.
The DMs, and that's the direct touch. And I understand what you're saying, like people won't do that because...
It feels spammy.
Well, it feels spammy, but on top of that, dude, that's work too. Yeah. I mean, you're putting.
Well, here's the difference in marketing and prospecting. Marketing takes time. It takes some time. Now, when I say it takes time, it doesn't take time to create. It takes less time to create
and money.
but it takes time to get a result. But it also costs money. That's exactly right.
It does. I mean,
guess what prospecting costs? Nothing.
$0.
Costs you little time to make the effort. And so what we typically would see is for newer agents, prospecting is where you need to spend all your time.
Yeah.
And then as you begin to create a business and get an income, then you start looking into the marketing side. But in my opinion, we would have this phrase, lead with revenue. You have no business buying yourself a billboard if you're not producing.
1,000% agree.
Because now the video side. This is what I always tell people. Everybody who knows me knows I don't have a problem with video. No. And so, but what I would tell people about video, and I would tell people, you should do it. It's important. People need to get to know you. And here's what you should know about it.
Yeah, I agree.
The way you look on video is the way you look in real life.
That's what I had to get over. You know,
and here's the other one. I don't like the way that I sound.
That was me.
Well, guess what? The way you sound on video is how you sound in real life.
I said this 100 times. I'm like, I can't get in front of video because I'm like, I hear myself. And somebody said that. They're like, dude, that's how you are to people. And I was like, well, golly. I guess.
But here's the question.
That's true.
And this is a question I don't ask everybody unless I think I know the answer to it. Do you have friends in real life?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's a mind trip,
so
man.
They like you. They like the way you look and sound. You know,
we do it to ourselves.
It's a hurdle. It's a mental hurdle.
And then you just...
And almost everything we do is that way. Yeah. Almost everything we do is a mental game. And typically, and here's what I tell about
people to like you.
Well, going back to the DMing thing, right? This is the way you think. You know, you get into the thought of, man, I'm DMing everybody. I feel spammy.
Yeah.
If I send you a message one time a quarter, 4 times a year,
you're not really mad.
Does that feel spammy to you?
Yeah, no. Did you ever have anybody like, dude, stop messaging me?
Sure. People didn't really say don't stop because the people I'm messaging are people I'm friends with.
Sure.
But here's what I did learn, and I'll give you, this was a lesson to me. There were some people who just never responded.
Yeah.
And here's what I did. I remember one day in particular.
Why aren't you responding?
No, yeah.
You're my friend.
Well, what I learned was this one person. Her name was Emily. Okay, she lived here in Brandon, and I DM'd her, and I pulled up hers one day, and I went to DM, and I had like 5 messages that went unresponded, and it was the same. You know, not the same, but it was all real estate related, of course. But that means that I've been messaging this person for over a year, once a quarter, and I've gotten 0 responses. Yeah. One day, I'd sent her this message, and I sent her one, and she immediately calls me. And I said, what made you call me? And she said, I know I never responded. I've been meaning to call you. Your message reminded me to call you. But the reason that I called you and not another agent is because your consistency in keeping up.
Consistency, man. I think our producer said that at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so I said,
but you hear other people say that too.
And so that's and so while I looked at it, I'm going, I've got to stop messaging these people because some people take it as I'm not responding, but I see you're engaged and I see you're staying consistent in what you're doing. So,
I think that'd be my biggest thing. I'd probably, if I did that, it'd be like 1 or 2 times like, crap, they're not responding. A lot of people will back out.
Do you know the average amount of touches it takes to convert some people?
We went over this one time. We've talked about this before. I can't remember the exact number. I'm sure you do.
8.
8. There you go.
So 8 touches.
Yeah.
So most of the time, if you're calling it for sale by owner and they go, no, I'm not, I'm good. Most people go, all right, I'm out.
Cool, deuces.
Maybe if they're a good agent, they call them twice. But it takes on average 8. So that means some it takes 12.
Yeah. And I would say a lot of them don't even call it for sale by owner.
Yeah.
Well, that's the majority.
Yeah.
That's the majority.
Yeah, sure.
But those are people that you got to recognize that, if you're doing a really good job, if you want to master for sell by owners, it's important to understand statistics and conversion rates. And because when you do that, you understand most of the time I'm not going to convert them on the first call and I'm not going to convert them on the second.
Yeah.
It may take me 10 or 12 calls or, however long it takes just to stay in touch.
We were actually talking the other day, me and our producer, a.k.a. Sarah, about how, and these were flattering things that were happening. We were noticing, and I was noticing that that people were doing some of the same things that we were doing, and as far as marketing goes and stuff. And so I was like, well, man, they're doing the same things, you know. But then you got to step back and go, okay, well, what's gonna speak more volume in the long run is who is going to consistently do it.
That's right, 100%.
Who's going to keep on doing it. And so that was one thing that we were going, okay, let's just look at this and say, man, that's flattering.
Yeah.
We must be doing something right. People want to do what we're doing. Let's keep doing it. You know, and so that's been our mindset since that. We had that conversation about just
consistency.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah,
keep doing it because people are seeing it. People are wanting to do the same things.
Yep.
And so
I've gotten more positive feedback when I started doing stuff on video than a picture. I still do pictures.
Sure.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
But I do see the impact, videos or reels or whatever, whether professional videos with these guys or you know, shoot a quick reel for somewhere. So, but okay, so David's off rocking and rolling, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's top producer, he's making money. How did you slide into leadership?
Yep, that was going to be my next question.
That's a big.
I took it from you, sorry.
That's a big. That's a big.
I see you studied.
Well, that's a bit. For me, it was unique, right? I'd sold real estate for 4.5 years or so before, and I was the typical realtor. And by the way, I've walked through leadership. Now I am still in a leadership role, just in a different capacity than I ever expected to be, honestly. But my direction to get here was probably different. I spent my first 4 years just going, look, I'm not interested in leadership. I'm not interested. I just want to sell.
Just need to feed kids.
Yeah, I just want to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out this industry. I had no interest in getting involved with the Realtor Association, or, you know, I was kind of interested in doing leadership with my brokerage, but outside of that, I was just like, I'm just interested in doing my deal, which is the vast majority of realtors.
That's right.
Hopefully I can elaborate a little bit in a minute to explain why they're leaving stuff on the table by thinking that way. But when I started to get somewhat involved in politics. Not involved as much as just kind of learning it. I saw some things that were affecting our industry and our business that I thought, I want to learn more about what the end result is on this.
Was it kind of affecting you a little bit?
Did
you feel like it was affecting you a little bit?
Well, so long. I'm going to be careful how I word this because of who may watch this. But when I first got into the real estate, when I first got my license, I think it was the first year I got my license, or really close, the advertising laws changed.
No.
And when that changed, I was like, I read the rules and I just thought, this is crazy. I didn't really get it. I didn't know the dynamics. I didn't understand why the change happened. But it just seemed from an outsider perspective that didn't know anything that it was just weird. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a trigger point of the dynamics in the real estate politics of like, okay, that's who they are. This is who they are. This is who has the, control. Everybody knows, not everybody, but realtors should know that the Real Estate Commission controls your license and the laws and rules and regulation as it relates to your license as a salesperson. The Realtor organization is a voluntary membership that you join, and we oversee the code of ethics, and we oversee advocacy and things like that. So, two separate entities, and that was my kind of initial introduction to the different dynamics. That the Real Estate Commission does this, and the realtors do this. Fast forward a few years, a bill was I had kind of gotten my hands involved in politics a little bit from the realtor side. A bill was being written and initiated that affected our industry. I was reading it, following it, paying attention to it. It passed the House, the Senate, and then got vetoed by the governor. And I thought that bill would have been beneficial to us. And I just thought, this is crazy. How did that happen? And that was my real I really want to know what's going on with these politics. How did that happen? How does it pass everything and then get vetoed by the governor? Everybody's on board except him, and whoever opposed it. And so I began to get involved in the political side and showed interest, raised my hand, and said, I'm interested in getting involved. So if you there's a process to getting elected to the executive committee and things like that for Mississippi Association of Realtors. I had a unique circumstance where I had applied for, there's one role, it's the first vice president for Mississippi Association of Realtors. If you apply for that to be in that role, you have to do an interview with the nominating committee. So I did. I interviewed with them, and they were, they called me and they said, well, we're not selecting you for this because you really don't have much experience. First vice president is in succession to become the president.
Oh, okay.
That's why they interview you, because you're the vice president, then you're the president-elect, and then you're the president. So Stephanie Cummins, who I mentioned, she's the first vice president this year. Right. And so I interviewed for that, and they said, you haven't even really done leadership. We're not going to make you the president of the association.
Right.
I said, understandable. They said, but would you be the treasurer? And I said, no.
Keeping the books on all that stuff?
Does that have to do with money?
And they said, why not? And I said, I've not done that before. And
nobody else wants to do it, David.
Well, they didn't say that. I don't know how many people applied.
I'm just kidding.
But they did, they explained it to me. And I said, listen, and these are past presidents who are interviewing and calling. And so, with much respect, I'm telling them, hey, with grace and forgiveness, I'll do it. Yeah. And so that was my first step into leadership. Yeah. And it just so happened that it had got to be with the executive committee for the state association, which is a big deal.
Yeah. That was your foot in the door.
And that was kind of my initial, foot in the door of leadership. And then the next year, I had not been asked back to be a part of that, which, by the way, all of those positions change.
Right.
Except for first vice president. That's in succession to be president.
So once you get in that rank, you're just like, then you're just in the order of things going up.
Your next 3 years are pretty established for you.
Gotcha.
Treasurer, directors, VPs, those change.
Fluctuate.
Yeah, they can change. And so I didn't get, and so I was the treasurer. And didn't get asked back the next year. During that time frame,
must have done a real good job.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I told them. And,
well, this worked out.
But funny enough,
people.
That's right. Exactly. That's what I asked for.
Yeah.
But then it's funny how things worked out, because then I was approached about being on the Central Mississippi Realtors, our local board, as the treasurer. Yeah. And it's funny how that works out, right? Because it just so happened that I had been set up to be the treasurer by being the treasurer for the state. I wasn't set up for it, but I would not have had that experience to give me the credibility to have that position if I had not done that.
Yeah. So you started out at the political entity, and now we're moved over to the CMR entity.
So now I moved over.
Advocacy.
I moved over to CMR on their board.
Yep.
And so the board, having been on that board, there was a lot of transition that began to happen between some staff internally and then leadership roles with the CEOs and things like that. And so what I didn't know when I got on the board was that the bylaws of Central Mississippi Realtors said that if the position of CEO is ever left vacant, then the treasurer fills the seat.
Come on. Well, guess who that is?
And so that was, I was like, wait a second here.
Interesting.
And so, sure enough, the position of CEO was vacated, and it was left open, which made me immediately, upon board approval, the interim CEO. So I did that for 10 months, and gave the board breathing room. Yeah. To be able to make a hire, a good CEO. This was last year,
Last year. Okay.
So,
would you say that the leadership? So you get into leadership. Yeah. You start to learn the political ranks and why do these things work? Why do these things happen? You're learning about CMR too.
Yeah.
Would you say that the experience that brought you that didn't really affect your production? that just affected more your knowledge of how the internal moving parts affects the industry of Mississippi as a whole. Do you think that helped you just on the politics side, or did that bleed into your production?
Both
too?
and I'll tell you why. Because I don't do those types of things without thinking it through. How is this going to affect my income? Yeah. Because those are voluntary roles.
You still have to provide
Serving,
for your family.
that's right. I still have to sell to put food on the table. Serving as the treasurer does not pay anything. You know, or the president or any other board position. They don't pay. And so, yeah, you get the title and you get the experience. Now, here's what it does do for you. I began to leverage that as credibility to the public of, hey, I serve on the
you should.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of it. Everybody, you know, if you serve in those positions, you should leverage that to say, I have credibility. I'm the standard. You know, like, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but
trust me with their money.
When you're marketing yourself, to be able to say that you are on the, you know, you're on the top rung of the ladder, so to speak.
Yeah, it's no different in the corporate world if you get a designation.
Right. Yeah.
And then another designation, and you're like, boom, boom, boom behind the name, right? Or
well, and it's all marketing, right? And so it's in production. When you're self-employed, it's all about attention, and it's all about credibility. And so I wanted to be able to sit next to another realtor if I were ever in an interview process and say, I totally understand you're interviewing them. We can do all the same stuff, and I'm also the treasurer for the executive committee. I'm also the, you know, fill in the blanks. And that gave me a level of extra, like, okay, excuse me, he's doing more. He is above and beyond just the average realtor. And so I would do that. The other piece was, and this is what I learned to be, again, 98 out of 100 realtors ain't going to do what I'm about to say. But it's something that helped my business float sometimes. Part of serving on those committees requires a little travel to the National Association of Realtors events and to the MAR convention. You got to travel for those things.
Time and money.
Time and money. Now it's budgeted, so you're not having to pay too much out of pocket to do that. It's budgeted by the associations for people to travel if needed. Time for sure. But here's the objective. Who can I go meet from, name a state, who I can have a referral business partnership with?
Man, that's where where it's going.
And so so I would use my time, both when I was selling with Keller Williams and in my leadership roles, to go to these conventions, network, and here's what I found, and I tell this to any realtor that listens to me. Here's what I found. Because 98 out of 100 won't do it, this is what I found. When you go to those conventions and you meet all those people, you're all of a sudden the only person in Mississippi that they know.
That's not a bad deal.
And so what happens is all these people, especially if you can get in certain social networks, like I would get into young professionals networks and things like that, and literally I was the only person from Mississippi in these young professional networks. And so they would put in these Facebook groups with 400 people in there. I need somebody in Biloxi, Mississippi. They don't know anybody but me. And so they call me and I go, hey, I don't serve that area, but I'll be happy to connect you. Next one is, hey, we need somebody in Tupelo. Hey, I don't serve that, but I'll be happy to connect you. And then the next one is, I got somebody coming to the Jackson area.
You're like, that's me.
And there were times when my business would get slow that just referrals from around the country began to keep me afloat. And look, that's the easiest money. And here's the other side. Flip that around. We all know people that are moving out of state. I got somebody moving to Dallas, Nashville, Atlanta, you name it. And you just met them and you call them and go, hey, for whatever percentage of commission worked out, I'll send them to you.
All you did is send one sheet.
And in 60 days, 90 days, you get a check.
And look, last I checked, the houses in Nashville are a little more expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Dallas,
so your check may come in a little nicer, right? But that's the easiest business you can get. And so, but you can only build that. And I tell people, this was an interesting dynamic. I had one person who was pretty popular in these groups, and I went and met him in person. being in person makes a difference. And so showing up.
It's like a handwritten note to people.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes a different impact.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So,
man, so I mean, we're getting all kind of nuggets here. And so if any new realtors or even seasoned realtors, I mean, you got your DM process on social media. Now we're talking about networking, which is this business is relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're talking about building those relationships.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Everything I've done has been built off relationships.
All right. Well, so
I love it, man.
Our man is rocking and rolling. And so his business is flying, right? He's getting in the leadership roles.
He's in leadership roles.
And then the CEO position comes up. Was that a hard transfer? So you left corporate. You were working for yourself initially, and now you're kind of going
now I'm back to working for y'all. You're my bosses now, actually. So,
well, I didn't see it that way. But,
how'd you like your coffee this morning?
Yeah,
exactly. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. No, it's.
I mean, I know it's.
I've thought about that. It's interesting because the dynamic is different.
And I'm assuming you're not allowed to sell while you're CEO.
That's correct. So part of that process was that I went. My license went inactive, and so I'm not selling. During the interim process, I was selling because the expectation was that I was not going to be here permanently. The expectation. In fact,
you're interim.
When I first went in, they asked me, "Do I want to take the role?" And I said, "No." I don't. That was the second time I said no. First time was for treasurer.
I'm making money. I'm selling.
Well, here's the thing: is I had a vision for what I wanted my sales business to look like, and I was doing this would keep me from doing that and from growing that, and so the long story short is that ultimately after some banging our toes against walls and things like that to get to where we are. We talked about it, and I kind of, part of it was the second time I got in as the interim, so I was the interim. They did hire somebody that was short-lived. Then I was back as the interim again. And they came to me, some of the board members, and said, "Are you interested?" And the first time I said no. I'm not interested. I'm interested in selling real estate. That's what I got into. I'm more than selling real estate. I'm just interested in self-employment. That's the entrepreneurship. Yeah. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
The second time around, because I knew the processes, I knew everything. I tried to stay out of the decision making on it because I knew that if something happened, I would be in the role. So I tried to stay out of all of that. But the second time in as the interim, I had to do some real soul searching, and I kind of went, all right, is the Lord trying to tell me something here?
Yeah.
Like, most people don't get this shot
He's dropping
once.
signs,
And now I'm back a second time. Yeah. And so I couldn't help but go, okay, should I be paying attention now? Because the first time I said no, and now we're back here. Yeah. And so that was a huge factor of that, of making the decision, was just going, maybe I should be listening. Maybe I should be paying attention. Yeah. So
I'm glad you did.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm glad you did too, man. I think you're well suited for it.
Well, it's been a fun journey, and part of it too. A big factor is, I know. A big factor of it is I know what it's like to be a realtor for 8.5 years.
Sure.
And I know what the value of the Realtor Association currently is and could be. Right. And knowing that allows me kind of a different position and a unique perspective to being in this position. So,
I already just from earlier that you were talking about, I love the fact that you saw something that needed to be changed or could have been made better, as far as the politics go or whatever, and you said, I'm going to get in this. I'm going to help make a change. Or I think this could be better, whatever. And you did that. And so that's something that I think in a leadership position that should be a great aspect.
Sure. Well, he's 100% serving others, doing what you did. You know what I mean? Because you're helping, obviously, us out in our business, as well as other people on your team, Keller Williams.
If nobody said thank you. Appreciate you and what you're doing and what you're going to do. I fully expect great things from you. And I can't wait to hear about them. What are some things from CMR.
Yeah.
That were you going to get to that?
That's
you one did all the stuff.
Hey man, that's segueing right into it. Yeah, we were kind of talking about what was going on too.
So what can agents or people expect out of CMR in the near future? What you got planned? What's going on?
Any releases we can know about?
Yeah, well, I mean, y'all can be the first to know. Some of the first to know, anyway. Well, we announced one of the big factors that I came into this role considering is value proposition. I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of changes between the associations and MLSs in the next couple years, and if we don't, I'm going to create an organization that's valuable either way, and that's the intention. And so what I would like to do and what I've begun doing is creating tangible benefits for our members. The first one was an easy one. It was giving a discounted partnership to 5 Minute Car Wash, and so now all of our members can sign up. And they can get a discounted rate at 5 Minute Car Wash.
Let's go.
I need to use that.
That's the first one.
Your truck needs it.
That was an easy one, right? Because realtors want clean cars.
That's
and
right.
I think mine right now has got my kids' names wrote on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so fortunately, and here's the, everybody in real estate's got a connection. Yeah. One of our members is one of the owners, and so I was like, well, let's serve that member too. Let's work within.
That's great.
The other thing is one of the big things is our number one realtor sign company is retired recently, and so everybody's been looking for a new company to do their signs, and so I've been telling people I've been working on this, and so I've interviewed multiple sign companies, and one sign company in particular provided a value proposition that others couldn't. And this is part of the capabilities of their structure, and they're going to provide a storefront for every member and every brokerage that is going to be suited directly for that agent. So you log in, you would have your storefront, and it is branded to Weichert Realtors, and that's all you could access.
Ryan Watson.
And you could put in your information, Ryan Watson, your phone number into whatever signage, and that includes business cards and anything that can be printed.
So it's beyond signage.
Anything that can be printed.
Okay.
You can car magnets.
Cards,
oh wow. Okay.
You name it. You can create that with your information on there, and it's targeted to you. Here's the fun side of that. So you would have yours, you could sign up and have yours, and office admin can have theirs, because there's some companies that don't want to vary much on their signs, and so the admin will order them and whatnot. Here's the great side for brokers, is that we're structuring it to where there will be restrictions around the law, the advertising law. So the reason brokers will love that is
because
can't
break the law.
You can't break it. It will not allow you to.
It's dummy proof.
That's right. You can get as customized as you want if the broker wants you to, without breaking the advertising laws.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask about that.
That's right.
Name can't be bigger than your broker.
That's right.
You have to have phone number. If you put a phone number, all that stuff. That gives us some confusion there.
Yeah.
So that's great.
And so it'll be. Now the brokers will still be able to see everybody's stuff.
Sure.
But anything that's put in there is going to be compliant with the law.
That's fantastic.
And so that way brokers don't have to worry about anything being now if they purchase from somewhere else, then that's something else.
But you're trying to create an incentive to use what we already have set up, right?
And it's going to be specific to CMR members. You got to go through approval through us for us to say you are a CMR member. And so it's going to be exclusive to our CMR members, that storefront. And so
we need to knock that out before we leave today.
So that's coming, that's right. So that's coming, your way. We've got some big plans. I've got a call actually this afternoon with one thing that I know, and again, it's practical stuff.
Sure.
Is a CRM company. So I'm meeting with a CRM company.
CRMs.
And so there's a lot of companies that have their own CRM.
Yeah.
Here's what you should know about Central Mississippi Realtors. There are over 2,100 members of CMR. You know how many individual offices there are?
The one, right?
No, I mean broker, like offices for brokerages.
Oh.
So there's 2,100 members.
Yeah.
How many offices within that support those members?
Say zero.
Oh, well, this is at least one.
Okay,
now.
I don't know.
Brokerages.
Brokerages.
I'm saying 2,100.
Yeah. Well, there's 2,100 members. There's 836 offices.
Okay.
So
we're going to edit all that math out. I just did. So.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
So, but it's important to know. So here's the thing that you should know is there's 2,100 members. There's 835 or 36 the last time I checked offices. Why is that important? Because while you have the KW, C21, Weichert, you've got these big companies that offer their own, like they may offer CRMs to their company.
Yep.
That only accounts for 10 to 15 brokerages. You still have 840 brokerages out there of maybe 1 and 2 and 3 man shops that don't have access to that, or they're paying significant amount of money for things like CRMs.
You're going to provide that service for them.
And so we're working on a relationship with a CRM that'll be beneficial to the other, 1,700 members.
Yeah, that may not be franchised out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get you. That makes a lot of sense.
It's built into ours, but for majority.
Yeah, for a lot of agents, they're paying for one. A lot of people are paying for one.
And they're expensive.
Mm-hmm. But if we can provide that, man, I've had contacts with CRMs, name badge companies, you name it. I've had the conversation, and I'm open to more.
Yeah.
There are some big ones that I don't want to go on record to say that we're going to work it out. Yeah. But if I work it out, it would be huge for independent contractors. Absolutely. So.
Well, man, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot going and starting out. I mean, I know this has just become a kind of recent permanent position right now. So that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of things you've got, your head wrapped around that help us, in the field and maybe save some money with the brokerages and realtors and stuff like that. That's amazing. Yeah,
those are the practicals, right? Those are the day-to-day that you can see. At the end of the day, I want you to look up and go, when you pay your dues, which everybody just did that, and it's painful. I get it.
Sure
I did it for 8.5 years. I'm hoping y'all did. If not, I'll have to go check it.
Yeah, we do.
And I get it. But out of that money that you pay, CMR only keeps $184 of it.
Yeah.
So you pay $566. CMR keeps $184. Yeah. And so, but here's what it is at the end of it. If you pay $566, whatever the number is. Mm-hmm. I want to provide enough tangible value to where at the end of the year you look up and you go, I got my money's worth.
That was worth, yeah.
It's better for me to pay $566 and have all of this than to not be a member.
Right. Better off, I got a net positive from it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the goal. That's the goal is to provide that much value. And the other part that's important to know is I'm going to begin and bringing other people in to help me is these things that we talked about, how to build relationships, how to contact people, how to drum up business, how to leverage. I'm going to be teaching that at CMR. Yeah. And so I'm going to be opening the door for all realtors. And again, this goes back to the fact that there's 2,100 over 2,100 members, and a lot of them don't have the training and the support. Yeah. And so I want to be that. I want to be that value proposition for people.
Well, that's amazing. So, I like it. Yep. That's just trending in the right direction.
Before we end this thing, I know we don't have a whole lot more time with you today. I appreciate your time so far. Do you have any, this is totally off. I'm a squirrel, man.
Squirrel. Let's
we all. You can't be a realtor if you.
So, do you have any crazy stories, or any crazy story that comes to mind that when you were selling real estate that happened, or
some that I can say on the air?
Yeah, right. Just that one that you wake up and like, man, I'll never have that happen again, probably.
I mean, look.
I already got some.
Look, my broker would say, when I was selling, my broker would say, his favorite phrase was also a song. God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy.
They are. And so, we are. And so it is. They are.
The whole thing, And so we, the more that I dealt with people, the more I learned the truth in that. And so, man, there were a few different times that we met, that I just ran into crazy people. Now, I will tell you, one of the things that I became known for was dealing with difficult people. Yeah. And so when there was a difficult transaction or somebody was not being, they would say, hey, rather than like,
David on this.
Exactly. Well, rather than dumping them and not making any money off of it, why don't we see if David can handle it? And so I would go in, and most of the time we ended up closing the transaction. Man, I had one that I always I think it just got in my head that was crazy. It was a hot summer day, and of course, I was wearing a tie and my button-up shirt, and I was like,
always dressed.
It was miserable.
Good,
it was miserable. I should not have done. I shouldn't have done that. But I was going on this listing appointment in Canton, and I pull up to the house, and I didn't realize how big the house was. But needless to say, I walk in, I go knock on the door, and nobody answers. And I'd called before, because if I'm driving, 40 minutes at the time, I was like, I need to make sure. Now, there was another time I had the same situation happen. I drove out in the snow, and they weren't even there. And I had confirmed, so that happened. But this lady, it was the opposite. It was 100 degrees outside, Mississippi heat. I'm in a tie like a fool.
You're sweating
and I'm sweating before I even walk in. And so I'm knocking on the door, nothing. I go around to another door, knocking on it, nothing. Finally, this lady comes and answers the door. And she brings me in, and the way that there's an add-on to this house, and it was like this hallway that connected it. And she walks me into the main house first. And she opens the door, and she's kind of like, she's having trouble walking. And she tells me that she had just broken her leg like 2 days before, and she's walking around on it.
No.
So I'm like, what are we getting into here? So I walk in the house, and first thing that hits my mind is the temperature didn't change. It was as hot in the house as it was outside. And so she shows me around the house. She's showing me around, and the house is 6,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh.
It's a huge, one story. Yeah. It's a huge house.
Of a heat.
Probably hotter in there than
and she's showing me around, and she tells me the story, and it's just her in this house. And she's, showing me. And I said, hey, why don't you go sit down? I'll look at the house. It won't take me 3 minutes. I'm going to glance through, see what I need to see, and come back to you. Oh, no problem. I'll show you around. So she shows me. We go in. She shows me the bedroom where her parents once stayed, and they had passed away. So then she starts really crying, and now I'm like uncomfortable, and I'm like,
we got a broke leg, we got emotions going on the family,
and I'm like, and she's like, I haven't had the opportunity to clean this out yet. It's everything, and I'm like, it's okay. I don't know what to say, so we keep going. Yeah. So then we get to the last room in this area. I'm like, all right, we're ready to go, and she goes around. She turns the corner, and she goes around to like fix a lamp or something, and she face plants and falls.
No. Oh, no.
And all that goes through my mind is a newspaper headline that says, Realtor attacks woman in home at listing appointment or something. And I'm
absolute
like,
worst.
there's nothing to say otherwise. And so I run over, and I'm like, should I try to help her up, because I don't want to be accused of like,
now I'm touching this.
And so,
oh man.
So it was just nuts. And so
reputation's everything in this business.
Exactly. So finally, so I was like, hey, I think I can take it from here. Like, so she leaves, and I don't know where she went. So I'm walking around, and and so I walk back to the addition of the house, which is where her space had been. And I walk back there, and the space is probably 3,000 square feet. It's a huge space.
Yeah.
And one entire wall is just filled with pillows that had been like stapled to the wall, the whole wall.
Like collectible?
I have no idea. I didn't.
Podcasting.
I kind of got a little nervous, because I was like, "What's happening in here?" And she's just sitting there, and I'm like, and it got hotter in there. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah, because she's got extra insulation with this
pillow. She's got insulation. I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on. And then I start thinking, okay, she just broke her leg. She didn't feel any pain. Like, I'm going, this lady is on something. Yeah. And I can't get her to sign anything today if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I go over to her, and I'm just standing there talking to her. And at this point, I'm just trying to get out. I'm like, I just got to go.
Yeah.
but she wouldn't let me go. And she kept talking and I'm just feeling sweat drip down my back. And I'm like, I've just got to go. So
you put in a full day's work on this.
I got out of there and I ended up not even listening.
Oh, no.
So that's the pains of our business. But that was one of the memories that I was just like, I think it was just in my head that I was like, man, there's going to be a newspaper article written about me.
That would have been really hard to defend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was the only one there, and there's lessons learned in that. But
and man, you never know. This day and age, people, you just never know.
You never do know. I mean, that was the tricky part.
People are very sue happy these days, and if they think, for some reason, they think real estate agents have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which some do, but most don't.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so they try to
at least not on them.
Yeah.
I'll say that. You know,
but I can tell you, in the course of selling, man, you're going to have some experiences.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that, in my experience, it doesn't take long before you start getting some you run into weird things.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing a snapshot of people's lives,
That's
right? And so you go in homes and you kind of have to put certain things out of your mind that you're accustomed to how you live and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so that's a kind of be tricky. But I feel like I feel like it's just, it's fun to talk about. We're not poking fun at that. We obviously feel bad about that lady, but we just we love to hear other people's, like, man, you won't believe this. How crazy this was.
She's fine. I hope her leg is fine.
She was. I mean, I've kept in touch with who they are. She still lives in the house. That's why I didn't sell it. She never sold it.
Okay.
And so, but that's the,
What was her name?
Yeah. So
what?
Good luck.
I'm going to go during the winter. Yeah. I'll go today.
I can't get any referral fees off that now. So, but it's but you get those. But what I would tell people is, don't shy away from experiences. There's a lot of people. I picked up on difficult situations, and I was telling y'all before the podcast that one of the benefits that brokers have, even as difficult as it is they get to deal with a lot of difficult situations. So they see a lot of scenarios. Mm-hmm. You get that experience too. You can have that experience as a realtor, but oftentimes I picked up some of the difficult ones that got passed to me were some of the best learning experiences that I gained. I bet. And so I was willing to take them on. And man, I could tell some stories on those too.
And that's the best way to look at it is like, some people look at it and go, man, I don't want to deal with these people.
Yeah.
But to look at it as, okay, this is going to be a learning experience. It might stink at the beginning.
Yeah.
But, I'm still going to love these people well. We're going to get through this.
Yeah. And there's a fine line, right? Sure. There's a fine line. You should, as a business owner, you should run it as a business.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so if somebody is going to be abusive in some form of way, chauvinistic in some sort of way, there's a fine line.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there's also the side of, okay, is that what they're doing, or are they just difficult to deal with? Because difficult to deal with, I can handle.
Yeah.
Yep. But when you're abusive, or you're derogatory, and there's a fine line there, and I don't know that it's so fine, but but you should be able to tell people no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work with you.
Yeah.
And you should also be able to understand that sometimes things are more difficult. It's not always easy.
Yeah. Well, and I would say there's a lot of just an average transaction.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more that are that they're going to have bumps and hiccups along the way, and you got to navigate that. I would also say too, I 100% agree with you, and people lose sight of this, is like you can say no. You don't have to work with that person.
Yeah.
You can fire them.
Yeah.
I mean, if it feels like it's going to put you in a situation you're not comfortable with, or you think that's going to go a wrong way, it's okay, because you'll have another one coming. So I think that was a great point on that.
Yeah, you run your business and you keep peace of mind, and you, to your point, love people well, and also there's a place for being able to stand up for yourself and saying, this is my business. I get to choose who I work with as much.
And do it respectfully.
Well, there's compliance rules. I mean, you need to follow the law and the compliance rules and all those things that come along with that. But as long as you're justifiable in your reasoning, and you know what's going on, your broker's involved with it, they know what's going on, it's totally fine for you to be in that place. But what I found is those that oftentimes I probably would have been like, man, I really want to not work with these people. Those turned out to be some of the best experiences. just for the sake of learning.
Yep.
Just for the sake of learning.
Yep.
And I've got story after story on those,
and
too.
it makes the next one a little bit easier. Or could.
Something to think about there, right? I always told agents this. For every difficult one, I've also got one that I so easy I forget it's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
like
right. Yeah.
it's all a balance, right? It's for every difficult one, there's an easy one, and vice versa. So just understand everything is balances itself out in this industry.
I mean, I think everybody loves a good easy deal, but
sure,
me personally.
But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it,
right?
They kind of are. Are trying to.
Yeah,
anyway.
that's true. That's true.
But I like a difficult deal because I just love a challenge. I love a good challenge, and if I feel like that love will prevail over whatever the situation is, man, I'm all in.
Yep.
I want to give it my all. And so that's what I love about that. But anyways, and I love the easy deals just as much.
Oh yeah.
But
everybody loves.
My point is that I'm not opposed. I'm just like you with that.
It's perspective.
To the hard deals too.
Yeah. It's perspective. If you keep a good perspective on it, you'll be, all of those deals come out, in a good way. So.
All right. Well,
how you feel about that? Well, David,
appreciate
you being on, man. I don't know if you want to plug anything. You want to share where people can find you, or do you want to share all your social? You don't have to. Well, I know being in the CEO realm is kind of different than the sales realm.
Well, I've been less involved on social media since taking this role. I will be getting back more involved with things like that. Man, I've done everything from leadership trainings to real estate trainings, and so long as I'm relevant to the sales world, which I'm still close.
You're 100% relevant to the sales world.
Now I'm close to it, so I can teach on it. So I'll be pushing stuff out. I'm easy to find. It's David M. Ostrander on all platforms, and so and then outside of that, Central Mississippi Realtors. I mean, hit cmr.realtor.
Yep.
That's our website. We'll have calendars pushed out for those who are realtors that are not involved or want to be in the know. They can email us at CMR through the website. We'll plug them into the newsletters and all those things that go out too. And man, I want everybody to realize their role in this.
Yeah.
The building out on Sunnybrook Road in Ridgeland,
that's beautiful.
That's y'all's building.
Yeah.
I want y'all to come use it.
Yeah.
I want y'all to come in and be a part of the things that we're doing. And so we're, the one key factor, I know we're closing up, but the one key factor is CMR is the central spot for all local realtors.
Yeah.
You've got all these local brokerages and all these local agents all over the place. There's one place that they all are a part of, and that's us at CMR. And so I want all of us to come together, and I want all of us to have a place at the table. So at my table at CMR, there's enough seats for everyone.
Well,
everybody come. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, appreciate all the insight and being here with us.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. It's an honor. I appreciate y'all inviting me to do it.
Yeah, man, we had fun. Take us out of here, dude.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching this episode. I hope y'all come back and join us on our next episode. I think we're going to be doing them right now every Tuesday, I believe.
That's the plan.
So we'll be airing them on Tuesdays. So now you guys know. Thank y'all so much for listening or watching. We appreciate it. God bless.
Y'all have a good day.